Hey guys, Ryder here. Today I'm going to be reviewing Mickey 17. Now, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie already, stop now, go do something else. Maybe go crochet or for a swim. It's a little cold right now for a swim, but I believe in you. Mickey 17 is a sci-fi film directed by the famous joon-ho, and the summary goes as follows. Simply, Mickey 17, known as an expendable, goes on a dangerous journey to colonize a planet. And in doing so, we follow Mickey on his journey towards self-discovery and also find ways to save the human race while also colonize a new planet already inhabited by other creatures. The story takes Mickey from planet Earth, where he has very real-world problems, to a mission in space, which reminded me almost of Interstellar. Actually, there were a lot of parts in this that reminded me of Interstellar. Now, first off, this movie is a mixed bag. Did I love it overall? I mean, there were definitely parts in here I did absolutely love. This was one movie that I wasn't planning on seeing, but I just saw some of the reviews, and I really don't do that because I don't like to be tainted by what other people say. I like to come in a blank slate, not really know a whole lot about it, and that brings me to why I watched this movie, because it had been a while since I have seen a movie that wasn't attached to previous IP. Marvel, for example, Disney, or another sequel, or another prequel, or a god-awful live-action animation. I'm talking to you, Mufasa. And I caught myself one day not knowing what I wanted to go see, and I was looking at this and I was like, well, I don't really know what it's about. And I thought to myself, that's the whole point. That's why you go see the movie. That's why you go and watch it with your own eyeballs. Wait a second. Am I that trained and taught to not watch something because I don't know the previous IP? And I was like, hell no, we're going to see this movie right now. All I knew was that Robert Pattinson was in it, Mark Ruffalo was in it, it was directed by Bong Joon-ho, and I was like, this has got to make for a great movie. And you know what? It was. It was a perfectly enjoyable movie. Were there plot holes? Were there little conveniences and contrivances? Yes, of course there were. But overall, this is what sci-fi should be. And what I liked most about it is just the commitment to the acting. It's supposed to be satirical. There were a little bit political elements in it, but it didn't feel like you were getting beaten over the head with it. It wasn't too overt. It wasn't too on the nose. You could definitely tell from Mark Ruffalo's character, especially with the fake teeth and the tan and being guided by his wife, that he was the puppet, textbook politician, insert face here, whether it be Trump or whether it be another politician who got veneers. I don't know what politician got veneers. Joe? I don't know. But there were elements of higher class, lower class. For God's sakes, Mickey becomes quote unquote an expendable. And an expendable in this reality is somebody who can die over and over and over in the name of saving humanity, in the name of experimentation, in the name of trying to find what exactly is a livable condition on this new planet, and this new planet being Niflheim. Niflheim is an icy tundra, but it's full of life, and the only life that we really get to see of it are those little creatures that look like croissants. I'm pretty sure I read that they were actually designed based on croissants, which totally makes sense, but the inside of them is not very croissant-like. Trust me, I know, I've been to France. And they label him as an expendable because it's his job. But I feel like it's also a badge like the Scarlet Letter, where it's more than just a job, it's how he feels about himself. And the only thing that really gives him a purpose, because they don't talk about building a life on this new planet that much. They don't talk about how this is the salvation of humanity and how people are leaving the planet to do great, other than, you know, Mark Ruffalo's character. Mickey is just there to do his job, and he does it well. I will say he dies over and over and over, 17 times, in fact. I guess 18 with the extra. But anyway, the only thing that gives him purpose is Nasha. Nasha is his rock. And what I like most about Nasha is that she's there to expose to us and to inform us as the audience who Mickey really is. So when you see Kai come in and she tries to seduce Mickey, we see Mickey pull back because he's just concerned about one person, Nasha. And that is a testament really to Robert Pattinson. Kudos to Robert Pattinson. The guy who went from looking cold like he's got to take a poop in the middle of a high school cafeteria in Twilight to one of the most versatile actors I've seen in some time. For a good second, I didn't even know that that was his actual voice. I don't know, did any of you think that that was actually him speaking? I thought it was a different actor, but when I saw him, when I saw his mannerisms, when I heard him, he reminded me a little bit of that character from A-Team that Charlton Copley played, Mad Murdock. But he was awkward, he was quirky, he was somewhat nonsensical, but he had a place, but you could tell that there was something empty about him. And every time he got printed out, it was something different, it was something new about him, or he either had more emotions or he was a little more distant, but everything about him, memory-wise, was downloaded onto his brick hard drive. And the story progresses where Mickey is printed over and over and over again on here, not quite being able to find the perfect conditions for society to live on, or getting killed by animals, or getting thrown off cliffs, or whatever it may be. But this is a reflection of who Mickey really is, and we are going on that journey with him of self-discovery. It also makes very clear the theme that you cannot outrun your problems, because mind you, Mickey and his friend are only leaving Earth just because they're trying to escape the massive amounts of debt they're in and the loan sharks who are looking after them. Mickey seems to have no purpose in life. He seems to have no problem becoming an expendable, even to the point where the person who is doing his intake is surprised, and she said, "You did read it all, right?" And he goes, "Yep." And then you hear the nice little narration of, "I should have read it all." But an expendable is a difficult job. It doesn't get the credit that it deserves. It seems like you are at the bottom of the barrel. You are the lowest of the class because you literally mean nothing. You are a guinea pig. You are a mouse in a maze, and you're trying to find the cheese. But spoiler alert, all the walls are made of death. And you have to find the right path without touching the walls to get to the golden cheese of civilization at the end. And if you do, congratulations, you probably get a plaque in a bathroom somewhere. One thing I really enjoyed was the God complex that came from Mark Ruffalo's character. And he seemed like he was just a pawn. He was power hungry, but he wasn't the brains of the operation. That was his wife. The senator was the talking head, but all the while his wife is feeding him all the information, making all the decisions. She had a really weird obsession with sauce, which I didn't quite understand. I mean, what's wrong with Prego? Satirizing the very thing that makes politics, especially in this day and age, and that is making a scene, causing a show, being the star in the room, being the one that everybody is looking at and listening to, whether you have your own talk show, whether you are screaming loudly and pounding your fists, whether it looks or sounds good, because mind you, politics have become American Idol. It just matters who makes the biggest show at this point. It's not about substance anymore. And that's what I felt when I got from Mark Ruffalo's character. Do I feel like he could have gone a little bit more and there could have been a little bit more in depth? Yes, but I got the overall message. It just wasn't to the caliber that I was hoping once I realized that this was the path that they were going down. Going back to the theme of running away from your problems does not solve anything, they will follow you, really shows in this, because physically they have the loan sharks coming after them on the ship, but even emotionally trying to run away from who you are, not knowing who your identity is, and especially for Mickey 17, your identity, the core of your identity at least, is just printing over and over and over. And what is your purpose but to be the guinea pig for everybody else? Mickey doesn't have a sense of identity. His entire sense of identity really is through Nasha, to be everything for her that he could possibly be. And he cares about her so much, he even goes to say he doesn't know what she sees in him. She's this high-ranking officer and he's just this expendable. And I don't know about you guys, but if I was labeled an expendable, I would have a tough time knowing who I was and where my place was in the world. And they show just how unimportant this is. I mean, for God's sakes, they created the creation of life, the rebirth, the renaissance of the human body. And yet, while the body is printing out, either somebody's listening to music too much to where the body is just falling straight onto the floor, or they're playing games to the side and nobody's paying attention to the printing. I mean, this is revolutionary stuff in sci-fi land and nobody is paying attention. Maybe it's because they're used to it. But at the same time, it just really emphasizes just how non-important Mickey is, despite this scientific revolution that they've created to be able to find a better civilization without really hurting people to an extent. The relationships in here, I believed. One of the best things about the acting in this is that I fell in love with the relationships, because one of the first things that we see when he's on the ship, when the senator comes out, he catches a glimpse of Nasha. And when he catches a glimpse of Nasha, she becomes exactly what he needs her to be. She becomes a rule breaker by giving him extra food, and then she gives him sex, which at the same time in the film was juxtaposed with the voiceover of Mark Ruffalo saying that sex is forbidden because of the calories that it burns, which I'm not going to fault anybody because that does burn calories. Nevertheless, she is seen as a rule breaker, and she gets him to find a purpose just naturally, just by naturally being her. She finds a purpose. Now, one of the difficult things that these movies tend to have, especially when reducing it from a novel and you have no prior intellectual property to fall back on, is sometimes you run into what's called the exposition issue, where you're just info dumping every chance you get. One of the reasons why you might choose film is because you would choose to show rather than tell. But a lot of times in the movie, I was finding myself being told what this drug was, what it did to him, what to expect. I felt like I was about to be told the scientist who discovered it at some points, but I understand there was a lot of information that you had to give in order to build the world around it. The problem is you have to find that healthy balance between show and tell, and at a few times during this film, I felt like I got a little bit more tell than show. Not the end of the world, but it's something that does take you out of the reality of the film because the audience can feel that you are being info dumped. Another thing that they really do when building Mickey's character is they show not only how loyal he is, but also how caring he is, whether it's being sympathetic to the creatures that inhabit the planet before they do, or even trying to console Kai after the death of her friend by being the only one that he talks to about what it's like to die. Throughout the beginning of the film, they set it up that that is something that he doesn't like to talk about. Not because it's uncomfortable for him, but because people don't take it seriously. They satirize him, they patronize him, and to him it's not healthy to talk about. But the only time that he actually does open up and talk about what it does feel like to die, what he feels like when he dies, is when Kai is trying to deal with the traumatic loss of her friend right in front of her. And he opens up to her and he tells her that he's scared every time. He's vulnerable, but he's doing it just so Kai can be better. And then, she tries to go and kiss him. And that's another thing. But even still, after that, Mickey goes back to Nasha and he finds that Mickey 18 is macking on Nasha. And the first thing that she thinks, because she's high on Oxy, is, hey, Robert Pattinson threesome, let's go. I don't know if that would be the first thing that I would think of if my girlfriend cloned herself, but hey, drugs. Now, I know the budget was small. And I also note that the performances were a little bit over the top because they had to, because they were satirizing. There were little political elements like we talked about, but also it was a class struggle, influence of religion into this, saying that this is what God wills it and we will pray, and the lower class getting breadcrumbs, meanwhile being the expendable toys that they are. They were kind of restricted when it came to setting, and everything had a sickly grayish tone to it, which is fine. It doesn't make for the most attractive, appealing look, but at the same time, this is what the movie calls for, and I understand where it comes from. Would I have liked to see a little bit of a difference? Yes, but they were constrained to the story that they had, which was ice white Niflheim or charcoal gray interior of the ship. There really wasn't a whole lot. The most color pop we got, honestly, was from the Senator's suite, where you had chandeliers and everything was nice and rich and ornate and brightly lit. Meanwhile, down below, you have people literally pushing each other into fiery pits. Synonymous with hell? Probably, since it's run by the church. Nevertheless, I found myself getting immersed in the set. I found myself getting immersed in the story. The score was great. The visuals were perfect and not too much. I love Robert Pattinson's acting. Being able to double yourself like that and be completely different characters and have the audience forget that you are both characters, working shot after shot to get those doubles just right, is magical. That's one of my favorite things about movie magic, and seeing exactly how the camera works, how they get these matching shots. And there are no better movies than the movies that run on the theme of self-discovery. And you can only have that when you have acting as good as Robert Pattinson's, fueled by such a great supporting cast and by such a great director. When you have everything mapped out, and at the very end you have somebody who not only knows who they are, but by discovering who they are as this sympathetic, resilient underdog of a character, you end up saving civilization and learning how to coexist on a new planet. And we don't really see too much of the rest of Earth moving to this planet, but we see ceremonies, we see Mickey finally being able to move on the idea of being an expendable, and they destroy the printer. He's finally just him, and the reality of actual death sets in, which is really interesting because he always had a failsafe. And he talks to Kai about this, about her friend, is that she didn't have a failsafe. She must have been scared. He was scared too, but he also knew that he would be back again. And it was almost a casual thing, especially in the beginning where we don't really know what the scenario is, and he's just lying on his back at the bottom of this icy quarry, and his friend just happily leaves him there to die. But Mickey 17 is a fun, comical, dark comedy with sci-fi elements through and through. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope everybody else who watched it did as well. I know it's gotten some mixed reviews. It wasn't necessarily some people's cups of tea, and that's the problem when you have directors like joon-ho, is that you expect the same caliber for every project, and you compare it to things like Host and Parasite, but everything is different. If anything, this was closest to Snowpiercer because it deals with class struggle, it deals with trying to find a better way of life for his civilization, and I feel like he still achieved that. Do I feel like they were hitting the throttle at 90% when they could have gone at 100%? Yes, there were elements of themes and interesting points that I felt like they could have touched on a little bit more. The editing seemed to maybe get in the way of that, but at the same time, I understood where they were trying to go. I wish they could have gone a little bit further in their discovery of who he is. The ending was a little bit confusing in that sense and tying up loose ends, but I understand at the very end, he did discover who he is. He is a savior, and he is the only one. And that is the most important element, is that there is only one of you. You have one life. You use it for good. You are here to save people. You are there to help people. You are compassionate. You are no longer, by any means of the phrase, either a job or a way of life, expendable. And overall, I left the movie happy. I think on a rating scale out of 10, I would give Mickey 17 a 7 out of 10. Was I entertained? Absolutely. Was I laughing? Absolutely. Robert Pattinson's quirky, awkward character had me dying at some points. Could they have done a little bit more and made it a little bit more concise and organized? Yes. Would I have liked to see a little bit more of the class struggle between the religious figures, the politicians, and the lower class people? Yes, that is what I live for, is political satire. Could we have gotten more of that? We could have, and I think we still would have gotten a great, great movie. But we still got an entertaining sci-fi from the indelible Bong Joon-ho, and I'm not complaining. I hope you guys aren't too. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of Mickey 17. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Either way, leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. Check out Patreon to see what else we got going on, and join the Patreon community. It's a lot of fun up there. But until next time, stay creative, keep going to the movies, and I'll see you later.